Thank you, Ronnie. Uh, First of all, thank you, Ronnie, and thanks to the Bakersfield College for the invitation. It's really an honor. I'm really happy to be here talking to you guys. Um, like Ronnie said, as much interaction as we can get, it would be awesome. Because it's weird to feel like I'm just talking to a blank screen. So please feel free to use the chat and the Q&A button so I can hear your questions and respond to them. And yeah, and you can feel free to ask throughout the presentation. I'm happy to kind of like take questions as we go, and then at the end we can do like an open Q&A when we get to the end of it, and you can any remaining questions that are still left. I would like to address them then. And then, well, my name is Kike Rivera, as Ronnie said, and I come from Puerto Rico, small island in the Caribbean Sea. And I wanted to first start a little bit about how I got to where I got, because it's not really, growing up in Puerto Rico, you don't really think that animation is a career. At least, I mean, especially not when I was growing up. It's changed since, and there's some animation schools, and obviously, like it's easier to run into animation art through the internet. But when I was growing up, I mean, really, like you would think, oh, you wanted to become a doctor, you wanted to be like a teacher, you want to be. So it was a lot of other careers, but animation was never something that you would even think, because there's no animation industry in Puerto Rico at the time. There was none. So you wouldn't really, yeah, you wouldn't really think about animation as a career. So I kind of like through my high school years, I was kind of oblivious to what animation was. And I had some artistic inclinations since I was pretty young, but through my high school years, I was mostly into music. I was at the school band, and then that in the school I went to, that would kind of take your elective class for art. So I wasn't really taking any other art classes, even though I kind of like to draw in my free time here and there. But it was it was never something I really took seriously, thinking about like, oh, this could be a career. I was more thinking I was going to become a musician maybe. And then when I get to my first year in college, I took audiovisual communication was my major, and then I had a minor in art because I just wanted to explore a little bit of that world. But yeah, I wasn't really thinking much about it other than like I just wanted to learn how to draw, and I had done like a few quick clay sculptures when I was in my senior year of high school, and I enjoyed the process. But I was really, I mean, at that age, I was really not really thinking about what I wanted to become as a professional, even though I was supposed to. You know, I was just like testing waters. And audiovisual communication was one of the programs that sounded to me kind of like the most neutral. So I went for that. But then as I started experimenting with the art world in the art classes, I, for the first time, learned how to draw from reference. And that was really exciting for me. And then my second year, I started taking a sculpting class. And that was even more exciting because I felt like when I was drawing, you're kind of creating the illusion of volumes and forms into a flat piece of paper. But then when I made a sculpt, it was like I actually created an object. You could turn around, you could see around, and you could see like, you know, I was looking at stuff around the house, and it's like, oh, I could build that. And it was like a very exciting moment for me, as dumb as it might sound now. But yeah, then as my interest in arts grew while I was doing this audiovisual communication, which was properly like a film program, and I started also getting interested in filmmaking and photography. And then I found myself in this intersection where I thought like, well, I like to do photography. I like to do filmmaking. I like to do drawing. I like to do sculpting. I like to do music. And then it's like, how can I mean, I felt like if I did one of those, I would stop doing the rest. You know, like in order to get really good at one of them, I had to stop doing the rest. And I was like kind of like debating which one I wanted to choose. And I would make sculptures, take pictures of them, and kind of like trying to do really nice lighting and really nice photography, really nice, just like trying to put everything into one piece. And one day I'm taking pictures of this little bust that I had done out of clay. And I realized, you know, I'm taking pictures. I realized like it was just like a head was staring straight in front. Put my camera on a tripod. I took a picture. I moved it a little bit because I thought, well, maybe if I just like do more of a side looking chin, it might look a little bit more dramatic. And when I do that, I'm looking at the pictures and it's like I had this aha moment because, like, I mean, obviously stop motion is not a secret how it works for anyone, even not even for me growing up. But it wasn't until that point that I realized I could do it with my artwork. You know, I could take this this lump of clay, turn it into a character, and I could give it the illusion of life with my camera. And that was kind of like a mind-blowing moment for me where I'm like, oh my God, and not only I can create this three-dimensional object, you could turn around, but you can also make it become alive, you know? So as a creator, that became kind of my goal. You know, it's like, okay, something that is materials, like pure materials, can become alive, or like illusion of life. So I feel like it's the ultimate step in creation for an artist, or at least it is to me. And I took this test to a teacher of mine, a professor of mine, and he was like a film critic class, and he watched it and he's like, oh, that's really fun test, you know, you should watch Jan Spankmeyer's films. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jan Spankmeyer's films, but he's like a Czech animator. You should check him out. I'm gonna write it in the chat. And I watched this piece called Dimensions of Dialogue, where he takes these faces made out of objects, and one is made out of objects that are like kind of fruits, vegetables, and stuff. Another one is made out of kind of like knives and forks and kitchen stuff and tools. And the other one was made out of notebooks, rulers, kind of like academic objects. But they're beautifully formed faces, and they're kind of like walking. You know, these faces are walking, and then they start eating up each other, and then it cuts like this really detailed sequences of one breaking the other apart. And then like every time they get kind of more digested by the other head, and then they start coming, they eat themselves, they puke themselves, and then it was kind of getting into smaller and smaller pieces until at the end is these heads of clay that eat each other and like puke each other out. And to me, it was just like, I've never watched anything like that in my life. And it really kind of like, I mean, that's the moment that I identified. From then on, it's like, okay, this is what I want to do with my life, regardless of the fact that I had no means around me that could kind of like point me in the right direction, other than this like almost casual recommendation by my film professor. But as far as education in it, I didn't really know where to go to. I didn't really know what to do about it, other than I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I started a period of teaching myself how to do it. You know, essentially just making mistakes, making tests all the time, and kind of like improving my skills little by little with the resources that I had. And yeah, that kind of started the whole thing. And then also at the same time, I realized, okay, so here I was trying to decide what I wanted to do among all of these things that really interested me. I feel like, oh, I'm going to have to stop paying attention to other things that I like to do if I want to focus on one. But then I found stop motion animation where all of them simply came together beautifully, where, you know, I had to make sculptures, I have to know about photography, I had to know about storytelling, I had to know about music, and I have to do about sound design. So everything that I really loved doing, I had to design. Everything could be applied to a stop motion project. So I found like my north in that sense. And then I remember one time, so from then on, everything that I did in art school had the ultimate goal of being animated. So I was making sculptures, and then I'm gonna start showing some stuff. So these early works, this is 2003, 2002. I had this exhibition called Fábulas de la Selección Artificial, which in English would be Fables of Artificial Selection. And I was really into, I mean, being inspired by the Czech animator. I started doing a lot of found object sculpting, and I started creating these creatures out of found objects. They were technological objects. I'm gonna show it right now. Okay, so this is an example. So this was a scorpion made out of a phone charger. These were just plugs from the wall, and this is like a an audio port. I don't know how you call them, and then just some wires. So I created the scorpion. There's another view of it. And then I started already using material. So the tail was made out of wire, and so were the claws, and so was the legs. So I was starting to use materials that could be animated from what the stuff that I had been reading and looking up on YouTube. This is it's made out of recycled paper. It's a bird, and it's obviously a bird. Sorry about that, stating the obvious here. But you can see each one of the feathers has a little wire going through. It's like a little sandwich of handmade paper that I could animate. Every single feather could be animated on this bird, and this was a painstaking process to build this. So I was training myself for the tedious work of animation little by little, just by this here's a close-up of the feathers. You can see what I was telling about the wire inside of each feather. Close-up of the face, the bird again. This one is not animatable, but again, it had wires, so potentially it could be animated. And yeah, I just started creating these creatures that I would then bring to life, was the ultimate goal. And I don't think I have the animation. I also did this little like worlds where they were living in. But see, all is kind of trying to lead to bringing more life to these objects. And yeah, so I'm gonna stop sharing real quick. Then at that time, my animation was really crude. I was just, I mean, I thought I knew what I was doing. I was a little bit cocky, and I thought, okay, like, oh yeah, I got this. You know, I'm the animator. No one else knows how to do this in Puerto Rico, so I'm the man. You know, I was like really kind of like excited about it, but at the same time, I wasn't realizing how little I knew about animation. I was just moving objects sequentially and taking pictures. You know, very ingenuously. And I remember one time, shortly after I graduated, this professor of mine asked me if I wanted to teach a class in kind of like an extended schedule that the university had, the University of Puerto Rico, where I went to. And I said, oh yeah, sure, of course. He asked me if I could do a Photoshop class. And I was like, well, I don't really know Photoshop, but I know animation, or so I thought then. But then as soon as I said it, I'm like, do I know animation? And then I kind of like panicked because he got really excited about it. It's like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, stop motion animation. That's what we're gonna do. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna teach anyone, because I realized I was only just pushing objects and taking frames, you know? So because of that class that I was supposedly gonna be giving, I started looking up actual information on animation. So I started looking up books on animation. I started watching every single movie I could that had a behind the scenes that it was stop motion related. I started watching a lot of like making ofs and mold making videos, YouTube tutorials. I think I went to the YouTube University after I graduated from my bachelor's degree in Puerto Rico. And then I started really kind of learning and discovering this crazy, amazing world of study of motion, basically, and how it translates to animation and how it translates to what I was trying to accomplish with my artwork. The class never happened because there was like a problem with the place they were supposed to call to get into the class was not picking up the phone because they gave a wrong number. So it never happened, but it changed my life in the sense like now I was laser focused and discovering for real, you know, what this meant and what I was getting into. due to the lack of education opportunities that Puerto Rico had at the time, you know. So I had realized at that point, like the university I was going to, however amazing it was for everything else, like I owe my life to that university and to my parents who are listening, I hope right now. Um, but I realized I I needed to go elsewhere, and I think that's something that really you should all take into account. Whatever your life goals are, whatever your like passions are, don't feel limited by your resources or what seems to be your resources. Because at the time, you know, like I really didn't know where to go, and then I found that actually all I needed was interest and time and passion and just wanting to do stuff. And kind of getting carried away here with this, so I need to move a little bit faster, I think. So I wanted to show you, shortly after I did that piece, I did Menuda Urbe, which was a cutout animation. So basically, all that information that I was gathering, all the technique, all the knowledge that I was gathering, I was applying here and there to little tests like a head moving, you know, silicone cast for a head that moves. I did like a little test of like lip syncing. And then finally, I applied it all into this film, which is the first one where I kind of like feel I was doing already more professional animation, called Menuda Urbe. And it was a cutout animation. And I'm going to show you a little bit of where that happened. So at the time I was sharing workshop space with this company called Innovia Luz. It's a theater company in Puerto Rico. And they're my creative family in Puerto Rico. And they had this little closet room, basically. And this is where this film happened. You know, I had all of these cutouts. These are bad resolution pictures, so you will excuse this. But basically I had all of these pictures I would take, and they were taken close to the studio where I was working with Innovia Luz, which was an area called Santurce in Puerto Rico. And then some other from my neighborhood in Cupey, Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. So I would take pictures of the buildings and just like urban sceneries around. I would print them, photocopy them, and then cut them into pieces. And then here, I don't know if you can tell, but this is like a calligraphy table that my mom had. And I bought some pieces of acrylic that I was just putting little cutouts in different levels of the acrylics. For each frame that you're gonna watch on the film, I was taking away all these layers of acrylic and then putting the cutout in the right place in the above layers, putting the acrylic back, taking a frame and going to the next one. I had this little table. You can see this is just where they had most of their props and costumes and stuff. And literally the wall is right behind me. I barely had space to walk into that room. So again, I think it speaks to kind of like doing the best you can with what you got. I can show you another. Okay, so this is a picture of, this was my working table at the time. So this is all I had, which is really funny to watch just now and like see how far I've come. But I had this little tiny table where I would have to cram up my stuff, and lots of projects were born out of this little studio space. And then you're gonna see there's a bird which is kind of the protagonist of this film. And I just stood underneath the power lines close to my home, and I started taking pictures of just this bird called chango. Is the greater Antillean grackle. It's a very common bird in Puerto Rico. And I just stood there for a few hours, just taking pictures of them flying in between the power cords. And yeah, I got enough pictures to simulate a flight loop, which it's I mean, you can barely see it, but here, those dark pixels are basically different stages of flight of the chango. and you'll see how it looks in the film in a second. So this is Menuda Urbe. Is everyone seeing? I didn't even ask. Is everyone seeing properly when I do this or no?
Oh yeah, you're getting some yeses in the chat.
And what?
You're getting yeses in the chat.
Okay,
I
perfect.
can see you.
Okay, sorry. Should have asked earlier.
No worries.
So here goes. Can you guys hear the audio?
Yeah.
Or running? Yeah? Okay,
yes.
Perfect. I'm gonna stop the credits just because we don't have too much time. Can the film be seen on YouTube? Yes, it can. You can find it. Thank you, guys. I'm glad you guys like it. The video is called Menuda Urbe. I'm gonna write it here.
I linked to your website too.
Okay, yeah, you can find it on the website on my video, my Vimeo page as well. But yeah, it's. I mean, I think it's always kind of interesting to bring behind the scenes because I mean, in the end, it looks like a very polished or sort of polished piece of work. But when you see where it was produced, it's like I was doing what I could. I mean, it's literally just Scotch tape, photocopy paper, and a table that my mom had at home, and a little like fold table in a closet room, basically. So yeah, I think it's there's a lot that you can do with very little resources if you want to do it, if you really want to do it. And then I'm gonna share another piece now. Let me see. So after that, so with that piece, I decided, you know, part of me was still feeling like I wasn't really going to learn animation until I went to a place where animation was a thing, basically, where there's an animation industry. And well, I guess I was almost guilty feeling that I never really studied it officially. And I decided to use that piece, Menuda Urbe, to apply to graduate studies in animation, and I got accepted to the California Institute of the Arts, which is an amazing, incredible school, one of the top schools of animation in the world, basically. So it was a huge honor, and then also like a testament to, again, what you can achieve when you really want something and you really pursue and dedicate yourself to pursue something. And I have to also give a shout out to my parents here, because I feel like any other parents who didn't support their kid would have like thrown me out of the house and gotten me to get a whatever work job you could get, you know, versus like my parents who were like, even though I wasn't working, because I was just like diving into this research period after I had graduated from undergraduate studies, they were really, really supporting me and supporting my dreams, basically, to be able to continue to do what I mean, basically discover what I wanted to do with my life during those years. And so I applied to CalArts. I got accepted with Menuda Urbe. And shortly before I left Puerto Rico, I was invited to this Puerto Rican collective art expo, where they the subject was portability, and they wanted an animated piece. And in Puerto Rico, there's like a big drug use and addiction and just drug dark market problem. So I decided to use the symbol of a syringe, and I created this mosquito syringe, which was inspired by some friend's idea. They wanted to like a little it was like a video they had told me about, that they wanted to make like a mosquito that was a vaccine, and it was like kind of like a way of getting kids to not be as afraid of vaccines. That never happened, and I kind of like took the inspiration of the idea and I turned it into a much darker version of it, which is called Aeris. And in this case, I have some interesting behind the scenes I want to show you guys, but I want to show you the piece first, because I think it's really interesting how, like, yeah, you'll see a big contrast between what the images are, the final images, and what is the actual background of where it was filmed. And I'm going to share my screen again. This piece was a cyclical piece. It's a loop. It's meant to be shown in a gallery. So it just keeps going. You can like start it at any given point of it, because it's just gonna repeat itself. It's like the life cycle of this mosquito. Let me stop sharing screen. Oh, did I stop sharing already?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, CalArts. Yes, I see someone was asking about where I went to school for graduate studies, and it is CalArts. Can you talk about how the animation industry is doing right now from your experience? I know other live action productions is slow. Well, actually, I'm gonna answer that one real quick because I feel like it's. I mean, it's almost funny if you were in the situation that it is, but like basically, animators have been training for quarantine for all our careers and lives because we work in isolation. Uh, and yeah, like in that sense, you know, I've been looking at all my friends that I know that are animators are also really booked right now because of the fact that most live action can't happen because it involves a lot of people getting close contact. Animation has been booming on the other side because people want to keep creating content. Um, and animation, I mean, regardless of the type of animation, hand-drawn animation, computer animation, stop motion animation, which I mean, stop motion is kind of like the most social of all in a way, if you need a crew to build stuff. But if it's a small production, most of those happen in a room in front of a computer or in a studio where like no one can enter anyways, you know. So we've been training for isolation. So it's been good. I mean, there's a lot of animation work out there right now. Um, and hopefully, I mean, this stops soon, the pandemic thing. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of ideas are being pushed towards that direction now because it's kind of the safest productions that can be made at the time. So yeah, so I wanted to show a quick behind the scenes. Let me see, 1 second. By the way, that I think that question was Cable Harding, which is a good friend. So hi, Cable. I'm glad you were able to watch it. Okay, I'm sharing screen. So I'm going to be talking over this one. It doesn't have sound. This is some images I stole from a little documentary that a Puerto Rican radio station did. Some really good friends of mine as well. So I think they wouldn't mind. And then this is my backyard in Puerto Rico. This is my father's workshop where I would borrow the space for most of my productions. And then this is my shooting stage, which is, I mean, I'm sure you guys can see, there's a bed to the right. I'm gonna pause it when it gets to there. So this was shot in my bedroom by my bunk bed. My brother would sleep here and I would like, it was many nights where he was trying to sleep while I was just like using these lights to animate while he was sleeping. And then my bed was the top one. This little tiny room, and this is where Aedes was born. This is actually the mosquito. You'll see later on. Yeah, this is my closet. And it's funny watching these things now, you know, having been to many like big scale productions and having a studio of my own for quite a while as well. Um, and yeah, but at the same time, if I didn't tell you this, you probably couldn't tell apart, you know, what was made in a bedroom in Puerto Rico or like this little shop that my dad had in the back in our backyard versus what was done in a professional studio. And I'm not showing this only to show you guys that I also got hair in the top part of my head once upon a time, but just so you can also see kind of a bit of my upbringings and introduction to the world of animation art making. And then there's some other interesting images around here. Yeah, so like these are some sketches that I had for the film. This is when the mosquito is biting the skin. In the close-up, these are sketches for kind of, I would trace the wire to this to create the legs. As you can see here. I would also, I was drawing on a table, which I hope my dad forgave me that one. So I kind of like laid the parts that I had there and I started like tracing them to see how it would match in terms of scale and stuff. Yeah, I'm adapting, kind of altering objects to make them fit into one another. Yeah, this is a little bit more of the storyboards, which were like just thumbnail drawings on a little notebook. And I'm showing this too because like hopefully by the end of it you'll see how the process has evolved from this. These were pretty improvised. I see there's actually a question of how much of your process is planned out with sketches and how much is just organic. So at this stage, a lot of it was pretty improvised. You know, I had like a general idea of where I wanted to go with the project, and I had some like a loose kind of arc that I wanted to take the piece through. But I made up a lot of this stuff on the spot. As I have kind of like evolved in my process, I am a lot more, I do a lot of more prep work now, because I realize there's a lot of time that goes into stuff that you end up not using in the end. And that is not good for anyone, you know. It's also like, it's such a tedious way of creating art that any time that goes to waste, it could be painful, you know. So I've learned to plan better in order to maximize my efforts, and I'll show you towards the end kind of like a little bit of closer of what I do now, what's my process now. Again, like this I think this is a really interesting still, because you can see a little bit more of the room. Let me see. Sorry, it's a heavy file, so it's skipping frames. Yeah, so this is my bed up here. The window, it's a tiny room, and my poor brother was very patient with me throughout those years. And then this is, I had another thing that I want to show you. Yeah, this is like a close-up of what the little larva was made out of. And this is just like some pieces, like an LED holder. This was like something from a lamp. And this was like a little neck for one of those reading lights that I bought at the store, and then some cables. So again, it's very, I mean, it's basically trash that I would collect and put together into animals and sculptures.
Hey, you're at 6:40, just so you know where you're at. And there was a couple technical questions I'll throw at you because they kind of fit with where you're at. How do you figure out how many frames to put an object in motion? And then also, how long do you spend on a typical project?
Okay, well, the frame rate, it's always based off 24 frames per second. So basically, depending on how long you want the movement to take, then you would calculate that and add it up, you know. So, but it's based off the film frame rate, which is 24 frames per second. That's what we watch when we go to the movie theater. And yeah, that's what I animate on mostly. And the other question, how long I spend in every project, like that's very, it just depends on the project, you know. Like this last one that I showed you took me probably 2 months, month and a half maybe. And it's actually a transition piece because I started in Puerto Rico. Like I filmed everything in Puerto Rico, and I moved 2 weeks later to California, and I finished the sound and the post-production over here in my very first weeks living in California. And I've been living here, that was 2011. So it's almost a decade now. But then I have other pieces like my first year short and the collaboration I did with Calle 13, which is, I might as well just show that next. That one took 2 years to make, and it's a 5-minute film. So depending on the complexity of the project, some things go a lot faster than others. Should I feel like I'm running way out of time from what I wanted to show. Would it be better to go into questions now, Ronnie, or do you think I should keep showing?
Why don't you keep showing? I think if we run over, that's okay. If people have to run right at 7, then they'll go. But if we go a little bit over, I feel like we're gonna miss things too if you cut it short.
Okay, well, it's gonna be cut short regardless because I'm about a third way of what I wanted to show. Okay, let me see what would be the best next step.
We're getting comments that are saying keep showing too, so let's run with it.
Okay, let's do that then. So Well, let me show you my first job, or my first animation that I did at CalArts, which was El Delirio del Pez León, which means the lion. I mean, my English title for it is The Lionfish Delusion, and it's based off the lionfish invasion, which was reaching Puerto Rico at the time. And I kind of, like many of my films, I take animals. I'm a son and brother to biologists, so animal life has always been very important to my family, and just like I grew up loving animals and kind of like the wonders of nature. So I took I take animals and animal situations and use them as metaphors for social issues. And then I was using the metaphor of this invasive species that was basically cleaning out reefs around the island, basically all around the Gulf of Mexico even. And it's one of the worst plagues of oceanography's history. And these guys would eat up to 30 fish, up to half their size in 1 hour. Like they had been reportedly eating at that rate. So obviously they were doing a lot of damage to juvenile populations of other fish. And I just took it as a metaphor of people that are like power hungry, and they don't realize how their hunger or their greed affects society in general, especially when it's people that are in power positions. I don't know if this would sound familiar to people right now, but I think it's still relevant to some stuff happening in this crazy world right now. But this is The Lionfish Delusion.
Screen share's off, Kiki.
Oh, really? Sorry about that. Rookie here. Let me see. Were you hearing it though, or no?
I wasn't. No, and I see a no in the chat.
Sorry,
that's okay.
That was dumb.
It took me a second to realize too until I saw it in the chat.
This is gonna go viral now.
Sounds good.
Are you guys hearing the audio for this one or no?
It shut off.
There it's shut off. Can you hear it now?
No.
No?
Oh, it started, but then maybe 20 seconds in, it shut off.
That is weird. Should we try it once more? Let me.
Sure. Yeah, someone in the chat thought it was Wi-Fi, sure. Which was what I thought too.
Wi-Fi.
Well, it must have.
Okay, can you hear it now? You hear the bell? Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit earlier. So, okay, so yeah, so that was my first year short. I can take technical questions on this one because I feel like there's a lot of, I did a lot of cool experiments there. So if anyone has questions, I can take a few now about it.
You got one in the Q&A. Do you use After Effects for the water particles?
No, well, I do use it for compositing, but the particles are actually practical. So I took a little fish tank and I filled it with water and I filled it with salt and dust, and I would move it and just film a few minutes of that. And since it was over a black background, I could composite it over all the footage. The same with the smoke. So the smoke is actually milk in water. I had like a little straw and a syringe, and I would just like pour it into the water with a black background, and then inverted it, and that turned out to be the smoke. Same for the blood effect and the gold effect. That was oil paint in water as well. What was the preparation like for this animation? So for this one, I had relatively a lot more preparation for this one. And some shots were a little bit more complex in terms of like knowing what I had to animate. Specifically, I remember for when he's swimming, I went to the pool and kind of like started swimming, kind of like noticing what was my motion when I was swimming, kind of like what moved first, what was faster, what parts of the stroke were faster. Uh, and kind of like analyzed what was happening with my body before animating that specific shot. And then there was some storyboarding involved. And again, like for this one, I still had a pretty loose story arc that I wanted to follow. And then I was just like filling in gaps that would help me tell the story. But it was not too intensive prep work in terms of pre-visualizing what I was going to animate. For the most part, it was pretty improvised on the spot with an idea in mind of what I wanted to what I wanted to happen before or after each shot. But it was pretty loose compared to more recent projects. The fabrication though was very intense and long work. It took me 8 months to build those puppets. Animation, I think, was 5 weeks of shooting and then probably 4 weeks of post-production. Do I make my own sound effects for this one? I did some of them. I had a really good friend, Etienne Rivera, who did some of the sound effects with musical instruments. This was created in 2013. I see there's another question about it. And then have you heard of Dane Atbath? That's someone just promoting stuff on the Q&A. So yeah, any other questions about the lionfish? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next piece, which was my thesis film, and this was a very important piece in my career, and it's a collaboration I did with Rene Perez. He's like he's a very well-known artist from Puerto Rico. If there's any Latinos in the house, you probably have heard of Calle 13 and Rene Perez. Anyone in the chat? Well, he's like there's a few yeses, so that's good. That's good. Latinos. And yeah, so like when I was back in Puerto Rico, I had friends in common with people from the band, and I knew Rene had studied. Oh, PR en la casa. Oh yeah, Dianelis, saludo. I had friends in common, so I thought, well, I knew he liked animation. He actually studied animation, and he studied art as well. So I knew there was a chance of him being interested in my work. And since he makes music, maybe for a music video, so I approached him shortly before moving to California about having a collaboration with him, and he actually was interested in it, and we started a conversation in 2011, and it actually came to fruition in 2014. So it's a long process, tons of videos, tons of meetings, tons of like phone meetings, chats, and we would basically meet over that period every few months, every few weeks, and sometimes like a few times a week, until he finished the song. And then at the same time as he was writing the song, we were doing brainstorming sessions together to like what was going to be the images that would tell the story of the song. And we would meet, and I would bring him kind of what I had built at the time, and he would show me what the song was looking like and what the story and the lyrics were looking like as well. And then I made the film, and then there's a little making of. I'm going to share you a short making of video of the process. So here you can see like this was like a little maquette I had for kind of the place where the old man was living. These were like my first kind of sketches of how I envisioned this film to look and the character and stuff. And this is me building molds for the legs of the guy. It says 9 months fabrication. It's mold making. It's a long, tedious process like anything animation. It's filling it up with silicone. This is like the final sculpt for the head. That's an interesting one. This is my desk. So you can see a bit of an improvement from my desk in Puerto Rico that I showed you at the beginning. I mean, it's still messy. There's a lot of stuff. There's obviously a lot of fabrication, not enough space, but it actually had some shelves up top as well. You can see like casts of the character. These were like test casts. This was also a test. This is the actual silicone cast guy. This is the lionfish guy who's there. I had two versions of the character, one for close-up shots and one for the wider shots, and then a bunch of materials all around. And then, yeah, let me continue there. Just animating one of the shots. It says 70 days of filming. What's happening behind the scenes, and then you'll see the final. So this is the set from the front. This is how that exact shot ended up looking. that's a little factory that I had shown you in the beginning. This was kind of like a teaser for the film as well. And then I'm going to show you the actual piece, the final animation, and this was 2 years in the making for a 5-minute film. Let me know if you hear sound when I start sharing the video. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
En el meridiano cero en la zona central, cerca del límite y lejos del final, entre dos valles con el cielo despejado, sobre un campo con el horizonte estrellado, hay una fábrica pequeña pero inmensa, de un viejo sabio que sobrevive porque piensa. Conocedor de múltiples maniobras, el viejo en la mezcla de lo mejor de las obras. El mundo explotó y quedó desierto, y el viejo heredó lo mejor de todo lo que había muerto. Tiene visión telescópica, piel de tortuga, lengua de camaleón y olfato de oruga. El viejo es el cirujano del tiempo, tiempo, tiempo. A sangre fría opera todos los momentos. Todos los minutos que se pierden por ahí los puede recuperar con un bisturí. Estira los segundos para que se hagan más largos. También hace trasplantes de momentos amargos. Y si continúa la amargura y nada lo consuela, se aplica un poco de anestesia pa' que no le duela, pa' que no le duela, pa' que no le duela.
Se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Y las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas nunca se venden. Alcanzan todo lo que deseas, así de grandes son las ideas. Se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Y las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas nunca se venden. Alcanzan todo lo que deseas, así de grandes son las ideas.
Si quiere darle vida a un ciclo nuevo, cada cierto tiempo pone huevos. No come mucho porque es de sangre fría y se alimenta de moscas que viven un solo día. Y si no hay comida, no lo culpo. Si se alimenta de su propio cuerpo como los pulpos, no moriría aunque su cuerpo entero se comiera. Es como las salamandras, rápido se regenera.
Pueden pasar los años,
pero a este ermitaño el tiempo no le hace daño. Es inmortal como los santos, sus vértebras son de árbol, por eso dura tanto. El viejo sabio nunca se olvida de nada, porque tiene su memoria congelada. Sus recuerdos están enteros, los preserva con hielo seco, 80 grados bajo cero.
se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Si las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas nunca se venden. Alcanzan todo lo que deseas, así de grandes son las ideas. Se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Si las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas nunca se venden. Alcanzan todo lo que deseas, así de grandes son las ideas.
Repetición, la repetición, repetición, la repetición, la repetición. La repetición de una acción es la técnica más efectiva para la prolongación. Por eso se repite aunque se esté aburriendo. Ya lleva 9500 años viviendo, y es que ya no pasa por problemas mayores. De tanto repetir se aprendió de sus errores. Pa'l viejo es un abismo. Vivir no es tan bonito cuando se vive todos los días lo mismo. Le gustaría ser distinto, pero repetirse y controlar el tiempo ya lo hace por instinto. Se trató de suicidar de diferentes maneras, pero el viejo sin oxígeno respira como quiera. Porque las grandes ideas descubiertas siempre renuevan sus células muertas.
Se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Y las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas nunca se venden. Alcanzan todo lo que deseas, así de grandes son las ideas. Se hacen eternas cuando las quieren y siempre viven y nunca mueren. Cuando se duermen son indefensas y se despiertan cuando las piensan. Y las atacan y las defienden, las más valiosas
So there we go. So that was 2 years of my life in 5 minutes. Any questions? Thanks for the nice comments. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So watching the version of your style from one film to the next. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was one of the main things that I wanted to bring when I kind of was laying out this presentation. It's kind of like how, you know, my work has evolved over time, and kind of like I think personally that I had a late start in the world of animation because of, you know, the things that I was mentioning in the beginning. You know, I see kids here that like since high school they know they want to do animation, and I mean they have, I mean LA obviously there's like lots of schools that teach animation. There's animation workshops everywhere. You know, there's camps at the universities. So a lot of kids here have the resources and they have, you know, like they can get started a lot earlier. So considering how late I started, I think anyone can start pursuing what they love at any stage of their life, really. And not that I was old when I started, but all you need to do is just put in the work and dedication. And then, yeah, I mean, it's already 7. What do you, should we go for questions? I have one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to show and I won't be able to, but there's one last piece maybe that is like the most recent thing, something I did at the beginning of quarantine. Should I show that?
Sure, I'd love to. And it looks like there's a couple people trickling off, but there were quite a few people that said that they were willing to stay after. So yeah, go ahead. Okay. As long as Benny's okay, I'm good.
Is Benny okay?
Fine by me.
Okay, cool. And I'll show this. This was, so basically quarantine hit, the lockdown started, and I had been working a very long project for a long time up till then. And suddenly I had like a lot of downtime, nowhere to go. And just like it had been quite a while since I had been able to kind of put out creative vibes of my own, you know, because I had been working a lot of commercial jobs in the past years, but there's very little time to work on passion projects anymore. And now I'm a dad too, so like that also makes things a little bit more complicated. So I did this thing. I also like, I had to abandon my studio, which is in Lincoln Heights. I live in Burbank, but I had all my equipment over there. My house does not lend itself to an animation studio. Plus I have a family here, so it's harder to kind of like, I mean, I wouldn't want to bring all my junk from work into the household. So I decided, well, what if I do something just using my cell phone during my baby's nap time, you know? So I kind of like set up some rules and for myself, and it was something that I would work in during his nap time with my cell phone, just like something that's a quick setup using the available light. And I was also talking about kind of like stuff that was related to how I was feeling with the whole lockdown situation. So that's where this piece was born. And it was meant to be a lot longer piece. I wanted it to be like, you know, 5 minutes long or whatever, kind of do something every day for however long this pandemic lasted, which by now would have been a feature film. But then I got work and I had to stop. So it's just a short piece of what could have been a lot longer, but I'm going to share it with you guys. that's it. And then like each one of those pieces kind of speaks, I mean, in a kind of cryptic way, but about some aspect of living the isolation. Had kind of like the time passing felt a lot differently. You know, they're all loops with that intention too. Like it's just like every day suddenly became just a new day. You know, it was no longer weekends and weekdays. So they kind of all talk about different aspects of that through these like metaphoric, crazy objects just moving on their own. Yeah. So now it's 7:10. Should I take questions? Are we calling it a night? Ronnie, if you want to jump in, let me know what we should do.
I don't want to hold anybody too long, but there were a couple really good questions. If you don't mind just taking a couple.
Yeah, of course.
One, you touched on how supportive your parents were, but there was one, let's see if I can find it now. There was a couple that were similar in the beginning, but this one says, I know usually people are discouraged from pursuing art and music, but you seem to have always been sure, I think probably sure of yourself. What served as your motivation? And then maybe if you can answer with that, someone asked if your parents wanted you to look for a specific profession, but it sounds like they were supportive of your art too.
No, my parents have been incredible. Like I must say that for sure. You know, like even when I wanted or thought that I wanted to become a musician, I know my parents were not necessarily happy of like seeing me as a musician for a career, you know, because it is, I mean, now I get it. It's a very sacrificed career, but even though I could tell they didn't want, they never let me know that, you know, they were super supportive, whatever I wanted to do, like however many like music camps I wanted to do. I was like playing gigs when I was in like my senior year of high school, getting back home like at 3 a.m. and 2 a.m, and they never, I mean, I couldn't hang out past midnight if it was a hangout, but if I was playing, they wouldn't ask questions, you know. So that's the kind of parents that I have been lucky to have in that sense. And as far as like, you know, how crazy it is to make a career out of basically professional doll playing, which is what stop motion is, you know, they have always been really enthusiastic about my work, really supportive, and really just like pushed me forward in whatever I had. And I guess, I mean, I guess it also has to do with the fact that I was serious about it too, you know. If I was just like, I don't know, I kind of want to try it out, I don't think they would have been as kind of like let me do whatever I wanted in that sense. But I guess since they just wanted the best for me and they saw how passionate I was about it, yeah, for them it was very easy to support me in that sense, and I can't complain at all about it. Then what was the other question, Ronnie?
Oops, I was muted, sorry. There's a few good ones coming in. And this is actually a good one for students because I feel like you've kind of exposed the students to a lot of different parts of your education and your process. This one says, what part of your grad school education helped most? And in retrospect, what did you not get that you wished you had, if anything?
For just in general? Or for grad school?
I think they were asking about grad school, but you could ask that on a general level too, maybe just informative of like what animation students might want to kind of gravitate towards.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, it goes back to the question, you know, if I was able to make it to a master's degree at CalArts in a place where there was no animation education, I think it's just like what you put into it, you know. And obviously like school is not tailored to every specific individual that goes to any school, you know. It's just impossible to tailor it to every individual and every individual's interest. So it is the best guide there is. Like it really kind of pushes you and like exposes you to incredible talent and to like incredible teachers and mentors and incredible knowledge. But in the end, you have to be able to personalize, like take that in and make it your own, you know, take that knowledge and then like wherever you feel like your institution is lacking, not necessarily at a fault of the institution, but because, you know, your needs are different from what the curriculum is, you just expand yourself and like just be knowledge thirsty. That's all I can really recommend. And as far as my own personal education, I feel like I appreciate every single second that I spent in school, both in Puerto Rico and in at CalArts, you know. And one of the, I think like a lot of my peers when I shouldn't say a lot of them, but many students when I was going to CalArts would kind of like complain about, oh, but this teacher is not teaching what I want to know, or whatever, or like this teacher is bad, or this teacher is not, like they would just disagree with teaching methods. And then they would cut up in that and not really pay attention to their own work, you know. And in the end, it is you put in, especially for graduate school, you know, it's what you put into it, because the teachers are there as guides, you know. They can help you, they can critique your work, they can help you, guide you to places, but you have to put in the work. And to me, it was more like, well, if you would focus on your work and all the amazing artists around you, because like every single person at CalArts, if you look to the side, whatever anyone is doing, it's amazing, and there's something you can learn about it, you know. So I think like sometimes at schools, people get caught up at kind of like faults of the system, to put it in a way, instead of like realizing that you're at a hotspot for talent and people that are pushing boundaries, you know. And I feel like as much as you can absorb from everyone around you, that being other students, other faculty members, or like just like peers from even other schools within the programs of the school, I think that's kind of like, to me, it was incredible to be in a place where it was just like a bubble of talent, you know. CalArts was a very special place in that sense, you know. And I made sure to learn something from every single person that was like working around me.
Yeah, that's good advice. You got to go get it too, in a lot of ways.
Right.
This is a good one. How do you work through any frustration or discouragement you might have making art day to day for your career?
Yeah. Well, I think it's discipline, you know. Like there's been many days and sometimes even months, you know, where I just don't feel, especially once you start working commercially, you know, there's projects that don't really push you in a direction you want, or you're just doing what you know how to do and you're getting paid for it, you know. And it can get frustrating, but you just show up for work, you know, put in the work, you know, and eventually you're gonna have something you're gonna be proud of, you know. If you slack, if you kind of like, oh, I don't like this, I'm just gonna not give it my all, then you're gonna regret it in the end, because like you didn't enjoy the process and you don't enjoy the product, you know. So there's nothing you can take out of that experience, versus even if you don't like the process, in the end you did something you're proud of because you gave it your best. So I think it's a matter of discipline, you know, as artists. And I mean, just anyone with a job, really, you're gonna get frustrated. It's showing up for work is not as easy every day, but you keep doing it, and you learn and you grow.
And hopefully easier if you get to do what you love too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that helps loads, you know. It's a lot easier. Cool. But even doing what you love, you know, you're not gonna have, not every job is gonna stimulate you the same.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I haven't seen any new ones pop up, so I guess this is probably as good of any to wrap. Thank you so much. This was amazing. I really enjoyed having you. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could see everyone's faces and reactions, but this is where we're living now.
I know. I felt bad. I just realized my camera was off still as I was asking you.
No worries. I appreciate all the questions and comments. I'm sorry I didn't get to a lot of you, but I get distracted very easily. So it would have been kind of awkward of me just like trying to.
I didn't want to interrupt you too much either, because you were on rolls too. But thank you everyone for all the questions too. There were great questions out there.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Thanks everyone for coming. If I can give a plug really quick, I just wanted to say thank you to the Finlayson family and the Finlayson grant. My intro got cut off, so I wanted to make sure that made its way into the video. And we're gonna have one more installment of the a similar interview like this in a couple weeks, so students look out for emails. But thank you again, Kiki. This was amazing. And if I can plug, I found your work at the Museum of Latin American Art in Long Beach, and that's still up until next year sometime. Is that correct?
It is. I don't know what's the what's the situation with visits right now?
That's what I was going to say. Hopefully it would be safe for people to view in person at some point.
I know a lot of places are doing kind of like you book, so there's like they're only opening at capacity, like a fraction of capacity. I don't know what is the status at the Mola, but I would just call and check. Hopefully, I mean, it's going to be there till February or January, I think. So hopefully there's a situation where people can still visit somehow and still be safe.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.